Hey friends, my name is Caitlin Duchesne.
And I'm Nicole Ellsworth.
And we are two motivated millennials on a journey to face the fear of our financial future.
It feels like millennials are too often left in the dark about finances. Yet we are a generation of entrepreneurs, influencers, world changers, and risk takers.
It's time for us to take charge of our cash money, honey, and do some real talk about budgeting, student loans, retirement, investing, insurance, blah, 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 so we have the confidence to live in the here and now without fear of the future.
We hope that this podcast will be a safe space where we can just talk openly about our questions and find clear, relevant answers.
But before we dig in, quick disclaimer. While we both work in the insurance industry, we are not financial professionals.
Our goal is to simply have an open and honest conversation about financial topics and to hopefully educate ourselves and others in the process.
But we are not giving legal financial advice. We highly encourage our listeners to bring the topics we discuss here to a financial advisor for professional guidance to meet your specific financial goals. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of our Face the Fear podcast. Hopefully you were able to tune in a couple weeks ago to our podcast with Megan Cormany. We talked all about disability insurance. It was wonderful. And today we're coming back at you with another phenomenal guest. We are so excited to have Elyse Archer with us. She is just a mogul in so many ways, and we are thrilled to hear her insights. And she comes to us with a lot of expertise in areas that we really haven't touched on a lot, which is mindset around money. So, buckle your seatbelts. So we're in for a great ride today. And just to introduce Elyse a little bit, she is the founder, actually, of She Sells, which is a coaching program and community for women in sales who are breaking through six figures and revolutionizing the way that sales is done. Elyse is a thought leader whose insights have been featured in major media, including Forbes and Inc. She is also an international keynote speaker and host of She Sells Radio, which is an excellent podcast. I would encourage all of you to listen. She shares best practices from female entrepreneurs and sales professionals who have accomplished extraordinary goals. But before founding She Sells, Elyse served as a partner in an 8-figure international sales coaching organization where she helped sales professionals achieve their goals. Outside of She Sells, Elyse is also a founding team member of Brand Builders Group, a personal branding strategy firm. Her client list includes New York Times bestselling authors, top 100 podcast hosts, and 8-figure entrepreneurs. Elyse, we are so happy to have you with us today. Thank you so much for joining us.
I am so excited, Caitlin and Nicole. Thank you for having me. This is like my favorite topic to talk about. So I'm so excited to go wherever we feel like we need to go in this conversation. I think it's going to be amazing.
So just to get us started, tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today, a little bit of your story.
Yeah, sure. So I would say my journey has really been one of learning to trust myself and to have self-worth. And I think whatever challenges we face growing up are really preparing us for that woman or man who we're meant to become in the world and helping us just be prepared to contribute at our highest level to help other people with the challenges we overcome. So a lot of my journey growing up was not trusting myself. And I grew up in a loving household. I'm like best friends today with both my parents. But one of the things that I did learn early on was to suppress my instincts. And I had always sensed growing up that there was like tension between my parents and our household, but there was never any overt fighting. And as a little girl, maybe you all can relate to this, or you can just imagine, like, I didn't know what to do with that. And so for the sake of wanting to keep everyone happy and keep my family together, I just learned to like suppress and stuff those instincts. And so I kind of like acted on the surface like everything was good and happy, but deep down I wasn't. And that later manifested into an eating disorder. And I struggled with that for actually 17 years. And as I went into my adult career in corporate sales, I kind of had like the picture perfect, life is good on the outside. I thought if I just like make 6 figures and get married and have the nice house and the nice car, everything will be perfect. And so I did all that. And so on the outside in my like early to mid 20s, everything looked really good. But what people didn't know was that I was still struggling with the eating disorder. I was in a marriage with a recovering alcoholic. I was really unhappy. And I remember around that time, I was in corporate sales. So I was like a top sales producer for this digital marketing company. And I would sell digital advertising campaigns to local businesses. And so part of that involved driving. And so I would have a lot of windshield time while I would go visit my customers. It would be like 2-3 hours away, some of them. And I remember at that time in my life, so I was like mid to late 20s, like 26, 27. I didn't like being alone with the thoughts in my head. Because when I had to be alone with the thoughts in my head, I had to think about what was going on in my life. And it was just so painful. And so that was actually the time that I discovered podcasts, because I didn't want to be alone with the thoughts of my head. So I was like, I need something to listen to. I played enough Rihanna and I was like, I'm done with this. I need something else to listen to during this drive time to get out of my own head. And so I discovered podcasts, and that was actually my first kind of exposure to personal development. I'd never been exposed to that. We grew up in a very like analytical, book smarts. Like my parents are both like genius level IQ, really smart people. And so there's a lot to be said for that. But that I was so unaware that there was anything else that was valuable in life other than how smart you were. And so I started to really tap into and just learn like, oh, there's like, I can shift this whole situation. This whole situation in my life is actually something that to some level I created and I was available for. But now that I'm aware that I have really full control over how my life turns out and what I am and am not available for in my life, I can change it. And 28's always been a really special number for me. I'm a big numbers person. I was born on the 28th. Funny enough, my son was born on the 20th. There's a lot of 28's in my life. And it was like right before my 28th birthday. And I was just like, I am not available to have this really important year in my life suck. I'm just not. And so I decided, I think sometimes we just reach this point of pain where there's a lot of fear on my end, specifically about like getting a divorce and just what would people think, especially young, like in your 20s, divorced. But I also knew that the pain of staying where I was it reached a point where it was so great that I was willing to see what was on the other side and willing to take that risk. And so I started making a lot of really fast changes in my life. And I got a divorce. I ended up leaving that corporate job because I felt called to go become an entrepreneur, become a sales mentor. I shifted my friend circle. I got help with the eating disorder. And it was just like everything started happening fast in my life when I realized that I was worthy of more. And so now it kind of fast forward and we can go wherever you want to go from this. But my passion and what I do now with my brand She Sells is, yes, it is about making more money. Yes, it is about selling. And a lot of it is just coming from corporate sales background. The way I learned to sell never really felt totally right or aligned to me. It was a lot of like push people, force them to do stuff, like keep pounding them until they say yes. And that it never felt right to me. So what I've discovered in this really like 7-year journey of transformation for me is that when we just fully align with who we are and when we own all of who we are and love it and bring that to the table, we make way more money. We're way more happy. We have way more joy and peace and just love in our lives. And so what I do now with the women I get to mentor and work with is, we're making more money, but it's also really about an inside out journey of transformation. So that's my story, and we can take it wherever you want to go from there.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. That is one thing I've learned over the past few years is to learn how to be more vulnerable. And you were completely vulnerable with us, explaining all of that. So thank you for opening up like that. That's really amazing that you're able to do that. Not a lot of people can do that. So you talked about kind of leaving your corporate job and kind of transitioning, I guess, your whole life around and how fast that went. Is that, you said that's what, got you to start like, she's, my gosh, This is like a tongue twister.
It is. Maybe I should rebrand. I don't know. It is a tongue twister.
How did you overcome any obstacles or doubts that you had along the way? Like you talked about, like knowing your self-worth and that kind of stuff, but there obviously had to be doubts along the way, and obstacles you had to overcome. So how did you do that?
100%. Well, funny enough, I had the vision for She Sells 4 years ago, and
Mhm.
I didn't really formally launch it until 4 months ago.
Right.
So I had the vision when kind of along my entrepreneurial journey, I joined forces with this larger sales coaching organization. So I went out on my own. I did the coaching thing on my own for a while. And then I got the opportunity to join forces with this much bigger organization and quickly became a partner in that company. And I learned a lot from that experience. I had the vision to start She Sells early on while I was part of that organization, because I saw it was like very hardcore sales coaching and training in that company. And what I noticed was that the techniques that were taught, they did work.
Mhm.
Absolutely, they worked, but they never felt totally right to me. So it was very linear, very logical, very masculine. And there's nothing wrong with that. But as women, this is my experience. Maybe you guys can share your own, but my experience has been, I was taught, I learned to totally cut off my feminine in business because it didn't feel safe. So masculine is about linear, logical, structured. You do this, you get that. Feminine is about, it's more, it's like the quantum leap, right? It's relational. It's like, hey, I have this hunch and this instinct that I think if I reached out to this customer today, that they would actually be ready to buy. It's like, instead of doing 100 cold calls today, I'm going to tap in and ask, who am I like guided to connect with today? Who do I think I can help? And I'm going to get that instinct and that nudge, and I'm going to go do it.
Mhm.
And that was never celebrated in the training that I had experienced. And so I'd cut off that part of me. And so I ended up achieving success in this organization by starting to tap into that and following my instincts. And I cared more about like building a personal brand and building relationships with my customers and being known as the go-to coach in my industry rather than making 100 cold calls. So I was kind of like in this weird situation where what was celebrated was just like pound the phones, do the activity, da, 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 da. But I was achieving success faster than most people. And I couldn't talk about why, because they didn't feel like it was repeatable or duplicatable for the other people in the company. So I started and I was just working with both male and female clients. I would find a lot of the women that I coached and worked with kind of felt the same way, but it wasn't what was celebrated. So they thought they were wrong for wanting to do that. And so I just started really feeling this need, like there needs to be sales training and coaching that is wired. That's designed for how women are wired. And we all have both masculine and feminine energy. We need both. We need systems and structures. That is very masculine. We need those in our business. But when we only celebrate that and we cut off any of the more feminine, it's like we're fighting with one hand behind our back. And so I had this vision, and I actually brought it to some of the leadership there, and they were like, it's a great idea. Hold off on it. Like, keep doing what you're doing. And then down the road, maybe you can launch it within the company. Fast forward like 2 years, and there was a very sudden changes at the company. And I ended up having a very unexpected exit where I was left with a 2-year non-compete where I couldn't talk sales for 2 years. And so I had to I went from having like international, very successful coaching business. I was speaking all over the place. I built a big brand in sales, and I had to take it all down, like take down the website, cut off contact with my team, my customers. And I had to kind of it almost felt like going into hiding. It was emotionally a lot. And so for 2 years, I focused on personal branding, built this other company with some other colleagues who left around the same time. And then my non-compete lifted like mid 2020. And so I was finally able to do this. So yeah, that was a big challenge, because I felt like in my heart for years, I was like, I really feel like this is needed, but I legally couldn't do it and couldn't talk about it. But what I think everything's always happening for us. That's the way, the context I live my life. And so when I look back on it, the brand that it is now is so much different than what it would have been had Elyse 4 years ago launched it, because the woman I am today is so much more empowered, so much clearer on who she is. She's not scared of saying what she thinks. And she's had more experiences along the way that add to the strength of this brand. So it's always happening for you. And it's just a matter of like looking for what's the gold in that situation, even if it feels hard.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, you know, what you just said reiterates that if you have your mindset focused on what you really want, it will come to you at the right time. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. And that's what you did. And the timing was exactly the perfect time. It couldn't have been better. And just to go back on something that you talked about a little bit is how a lot of times women in sales are working in a very masculine type of environment. The sales cycle is kind of driven by that masculinity. And I know that I've felt it personally too, where there's a lot of emphasis on, hard sales, push, push, push. And it's felt very inauthentic to me. And I've seen how that's affected other women too, where, maybe they do all the right things, they go through the right steps, they're checking off the right boxes, and they're actually a lot of times really successful, but they're exhausted and so drained at the end of the day. So can you just talk into that a little bit more and how it's possible for women to sell authentically to them and to actually be successful with it?
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, I think, so I'll share the results that shifting from that mindset to my new mindset has had in my own life. And then we can talk tactically too. So for years, I sold that way. That was when I was in corporate and even when I had my own business. And I found myself like on Sundays kind of dreading the week ahead. I found myself with just like constant low grade anxiety. I found myself like continuously kind of like bumping up against the same income threshold. I would do like I was consistently like $10,000 months, maybe 20 if it was a good month. But I felt like I couldn't break through it. And I was like, maybe this is just all I meant to make. Maybe this is just what it's meant to be for me. And I finally reached a point last year where I was like, I am unavailable to live my life like this anymore. And I'm just curious. I just want to see what would happen if I totally followed my intuition, if I just started totally like doing my social media promotion, my sales conversations, everything the way that my intuition is telling me to do it. And let's just do an experiment and see. And so I shifted how I was doing everything. I started just honoring those nudges, like, instead of doing the 50 outbound reaches every day without thinking about who you're contacting, without really like emotionally connecting with that person, I was like, no, let me tap in and see who I feel compelled to contact today. Let me see what I feel called to launch in my business. And in 6 weeks from making that decision, I went from having averaged $10,000 months for years to bringing in $120,000 in 10 days. Wow. It works. And it's because let that be your proof. If you're running your business and you're an advisor or you're listening to this and you've got any background and you're like, there's something that doesn't feel quite right in how I'm doing my business, trust that and ask what would feel right. And it'll often be different from what you've been told is the right way to do it. And that's one thing that I've learned in my own life and that I teach my clients too, is there's no shoulds in life, right? We're like, I should do this, I should do that. If I'm not doing it this way, it's wrong or it's irresponsible. Like, just do an experiment. What's your intuition telling you to do? How is it telling you to run your business? Try it and see. And if it doesn't work, you can go back to how it's going for you, but just give yourself that opportunity to see what happens.
And something that I just want to point out really quick too is, although we're using the terminology of sales and owning your own business, yes, of course, everything Elyse is talking about is very applicable to someone who is in a sales role, who has sales in their title, or who is an entrepreneur, has their own business. But it applies so far outside of that too, and just how you're living your life, how you're interacting with people, how you're taking care of yourself. So I guess if you find yourself as someone who's not in a sales role, don't let language stop you from soaking in everything that she's talking about here. It applies to so much, even beyond, the business world as well.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that. And I'll just say this, it is everything. I healed cancer last year, with this mindset, all of these things it's your relationships, it's your money, it's your business, it's your health, it's your wealth, it's all of it. It's all about tapping in and trusting what actually feels right for you. So I'm glad you said that, because my passion is so much bigger than sales now. It's just transforming your whole life from the inside out. So 100%. Yeah.
So I have a quick question. This wasn't on our list of questions, but what you were saying kind of got me thinking. What advice would you give to somebody that is either in an industry or is looking to get into an industry that is more male dominated, whether or not that is in sales? I know Caitlin and I are both kind of in the insurance financial realm, which typically can be seen as more masculine or male dominated. What would you say to somebody like us, if we weren't in a sales role and we're looking to do that type of thing? I guess what advice would you give to somebody?
Yeah. Well, I think if you're feeling called to do it, go for it. And I think that what's exciting to me is seeing more women in industries like finance and insurance and even automotive, right? And other traditional male dominated industries. I think the key, because I didn't have this knowledge before I did any of that. So old Elyse didn't even know to think about this. But if you're aware of what we're talking about today and you're aware of, I don't want to cut off my real power as a woman, which is your intuition, relationship building abilities, your creativity. Just be aware of that and look for ways to incorporate that into what you're doing, because most likely what will be celebrated and what you'll be measured against are how many outbound reaches are you doing? What's the activity? Are you following the script? Yada, yada. So if you're going into a situation like that, obviously you do what you need to do, right? But I do also work with a lot of women who became very successful and top producers in their space. And they did what was required, but then they also kind of behind the scenes would do the things that felt right to them. And then they would do that until they achieved so much more success than everybody else that the leadership was then we don't care what you're doing, just do it. And, it's as long as the numbers come in, usually sales leadership doesn't care, but you got to kind of prove that you can bring in the numbers first. So you play the game, right? And you do what you're asked to do, but tap in and have rituals and things that help you also stay anchored to that feminine energy, whether it's meditation, whether it's yoga, whether it's dance, whether it's you're reading in the morning, like candles, oils. I'm big on all of that stuff. So have those things kind of as buffers in your day. I'm really big on at the end of it. Like yesterday, I did a intensive all afternoon with a client. And when you're giving, when you're coaching, when you're giving, when you're working with your clients, you're very much in your masculine. So at the end of the day, I was I gave all day long, and I do give all day long, usually with my clients. And I took a bath. I was okay, I can recenter and re-anchor. So it's the balance of the two that just the more mindful you are of it, the more everything flows easily in your life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Along those lines, just a quick plug on Elyse's website, which is elysearcher.com. She has an awesome ebook that I highly encourage everyone go check that out, because it also talks about how to really almost start your day from a very self-love perspective. You wake up and right away, before you check, your phone, before you get in your email, before you start taking care of kids, if you have them, before all of that, you are carving out time to just sit with yourself, do things that are good for you mentally, physically, spiritually. And I know that me personally starting to implement those and actually find the time has been a game changer. So thank you for that resource. And, if you're listening to this, go to our website and check it out. It is awesome.
Thank you for that, Caitlin. And I think one thing you made me think of is, I was working with a client last week who'd been doing really, really well with her energy and her mindset. And until the morning before our call, and she said, I got off my game yesterday. And I'm I've just been thrown off since then. I was okay, what changed? She said, I didn't do the morning routine. And she was very aware that was the one thing. So you have to be proactive about it. It is critical that you kind of buffer. And this is for men and women. You got to start off your day in that way, intentionally giving to yourself and receiving that just fresh mindset, perspective, taking care of your body, whatever it is. This is something that does tie in with fear of not making money and stuff. So I know we wanted to talk about this too, but again, masculine is about giving, feminine is about receiving. So what you want to think about is if you are struggling in any way to make the money you want to make or to receive the clients you want to receive, oftentimes that's some sort of injured feminine that's going on in you. And so if you have a block against receiving compliments, attention, whatever, that's also going to show up in your relationship with money and not receiving that. So that morning routine where you can put in practices. Like I teach my clients things to up-level their self-worth and their belief in themselves and their confidence, like getting really great at receiving, and using that morning routine time to do that is so helpful, because everything else, it's like, it doesn't matter how great the sales strategy is or the business strategy is. If you've got a block against receiving more money, you're not going to do it. Like it's not going to work. So that's also really an important part of this.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that something that you're huge on, that you work with your clients a lot on, something you just talked about, is money limitations and things that can hold us back from going to the next level, both, financially and in our careers, but also personally. So what are some of the most common money limitations or just self-limiting mindsets that you find in your clients?
Yeah, I'd say there are two, and these are two that I used to struggle with and that show up most consistently for my clients. So one is, I'm not worthy of making a certain amount. So there's an amount that intuitively you're like, if I could bring this in, this would be really awesome and great in my life. But when you think of it, there's a part of you that feels unworthy of it. The second is, I'm going to make it and it's going to go away. And that was real. That was a lot of mine for a long time. Like I could make money, but I always had this weird underlying fear that it was just all going to go away. And so what I teach my clients and what really helped me was to understand that money is just energy. That's all it is. And so money is, if you're familiar at all with energy centers in the body or chakras, money is root chakra. So that's like the base of your spine. That's like the first energy center in your body. And it has to do with your sense of safety, security, well-being, whatever. And that's like that also comes into play, like your relationships with other people, whatever issues you had with your parents growing up, because they were your sense of safety and security, will tend to play out again in your relationship with money down the road. So I was working with a client yesterday who said, and she's made a lot of money, but she was like, I have this fear that I'm going to make more and it's going to go away. And she was like, I don't know what that's about. And so I said, did you ever have a feeling of abandonment as a kid growing up? And she was like, yeah, actually, my mom tried to leave for a while. And so that, like, we don't understand this, right? We don't, like, when we don't make that connection, we think that it just is our reality, that we're going to make this money and it's going to go away, or that we're not worthy of making more. But really, when you look at, usually it's your relationship with your parents, what were some of the challenges you experienced growing up? And then that'll replay in the relationship with money until you heal it. And the other thing too, is sometimes this stuff is generational. I struggled for years with feeling like I'm going to make money and it's all going to go away. And what is that about? And I actually had a conversation with my mom a couple months ago about it, because I'd gotten past the fear, but I was just like, where does this come from? And she was like, oh, I struggled with that my whole life, because her mom grew up in the Great Depression. So her mom, even though they had money growing up, was always like, we got to count every penny. We're super poor and we got to get the cheapest thing at the store. And so that stuff gets passed on through generations. And so when you can tie it back and realize sometimes it's not even yours, but it got passed on to you. And I think every generation is like the next evolution of the one previously. So then it's like, oh, beautiful. This is now mine to heal, so that my kids don't have to deal with this. And I get to create a more prosperous future and legacy for my family and for generations to come. So it's interesting stuff when you start diving into it, but hopefully that helps make some connections for someone who may have been struggling with fear around money and not have understood where it was coming from.
Go ahead, Nicole.
No, I was just going to say, like, that's so interesting. Like, I would never have thought about it that way. But now that you're saying that, I'm thinking, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, like mind blown. Like, that completely makes sense to me and makes me understand maybe why I'm so passionate about even face the fear and just bringing more awareness to it, because it's kind of something I've always struggled with. And yeah, like, man,
yeah,
it makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
And also, that just goes straight back to the masculine, feminine energy stuff, I think, because when I think of masculine, I often think of like compartmentalizing things where it's like, okay, you have work, you have home, you have and it's all very separate. Whereas reality is, for men and women, like, that's not how life works. Like, you have connections happening constantly from what happened in your childhood, what you learned then, to how you're acting, what you're thinking about in your day-to-day life right now, at work, at home, everywhere. So really understanding and allowing kind of space for that feminine energy to come in and work through some of those things are, it's just so important.
Yeah. It's all related. It's all for all of us. It's all related. If you're having a bad day at home, when you go to work, how do you feel, right? You're still carrying that with you. Now, the way men's brains are created and wired, they have better ability to compartmentalize, so they can shut it off better than women. It's just the way the brain is created, but it's still, you're still carrying that energy with you. So that's part of why going back to that morning routine and just like getting yourself anchored into feeling really good. This is maybe we talk about this. I don't know if you guys find this helpful, but the way that you feel matters a lot. And this is another thing we're taught. It doesn't matter how you feel. Well, everything is energy. Money's energy. We're energy. It's all energy. We're all vibrational beings. Everything has a vibration to it. So your feeling creates the vibration that you're showing up at in the world. So when people talk about like law of attraction and the secret and woo-woo stuff, it's not woo, it's science. It's just science. So when you feel good, you vibrate at a higher frequency. The love, and you feel it in your body, right? The feeling love, feeling gratitude, feeling joy, feeling abundant. You feel better than when you're feeling fear, scarcity, lack, limitation. And when you feel at those higher levels, we're in an electromagnetic world. You draw things back to you that match that vibration. So it matters a lot how you feel. And so, but the key is you have to stop basing your feelings on your outer circumstances, and you got to do the inner work to create the feeling of what you want to feel, no matter what the outward circumstances are. And then your outward circumstances start to shift to match that inward feeling. So I geek out on this stuff, but it's powerful. And if you're looking to create more money in your life, you got to start feeling more abundant first. It's how it works. Yeah.
So I'm curious of what is like one or two small ways that someone today can really focus on reframing their mindset of overcoming those limitations, because it's like, yes, that's what I want to do it. What's the first step? Where do I begin?
Yeah. So I think the first step is just awareness, is self-awareness. And when you're thinking like a limiting belief, right? So this is the cool thing about how we're wired. And my girlfriend, Allison Chavez, teaches this. She has a great podcast, The Prosperity Approach. So you can go check it out if you're like wanting to go deeper into this type of stuff. But there's two states of being. We're always in one of two states of being. And what she calls them are beautiful states or suffering states. So a beautiful state is those good feelings we talked about, right? Love, joy, abundance, peace, calm, everything you want because you think it's going to make you feel that. You want more money because you think it's going to make you feel more free. You want the nice car because you think it's going to feel exhilarating to drive in it. You want the new wardrobe because you think it's going to make you feel really confident. Everything you want exists in the beautiful state. Then we've also got these suffering states, which are all the negative emotions: lack, fear, scarcity, overwhelm, guilt, shame, all of it. So your body is so incredibly designed that the moment you think a limiting belief, you feel bad. It's actually wired that way. It's an instant feedback loop. So when you start thinking, I can't make more than $10,000 a month, and that feels bad in your body, that's your sign that you're thinking a limiting belief. So what you get to do in that moment is notice it and go, oh, interesting. What was I just thinking that made me feel that way? I was thinking that my income is capped. I feel bad in my body. All a limiting belief is a lie. That's all it is. It's a lie. You picked it up sometime between the ages of 0 and 7, most likely. Your brain is in theta state, like you're under hypnosis. So you don't have a filter for what's true and what's not. So you heard your parents saying money doesn't grow on trees. You heard your parents saying, we can't afford that. You heard your parents saying, you can't travel and do everything you want. You got to pick and choose. Life is hard. You got to work hard for your money. You took that in as truth. So that became an underlying belief system that now is running the show for you. But it's not true. You get to choose your own. It may have been true for them because they thought it was, but money is abundant. Money is energy. It literally gets printed on presses when we need more. So it's when you start to really look at it, these limiting beliefs around money aren't actually true, but it got ingrained in your programming early on. So when you notice that you're feeling bad in your body, again, that's your cue. Oh, I was just having unintelligent thinking, or I was thinking something that's a lie. The opposite of whatever that thing is what's actually true for you. So when you notice, I was just thinking, I can't make more money. What's the opposite of that? Oh, actually, I can make all the money I want. How does that feel in your body? It probably feels a lot better. So then your opportunity is to start to rewire that belief. And that's what I work on with my clients, but it's a lot of visualizing, it's affirming, and it's, that something is true. Your subconscious has accepted it as true, because we can rewire any belief system. Your subconscious has accepted it as true when you can say it, and you don't feel resistance anymore in your body. But it takes a period of time. It may take several days, several weeks, several months of just visualizing and affirming that new reality for yourself until it becomes your actual truth in your body. But once it becomes your truth and your belief system, the way your body and brain are created is to never make you a liar. Whatever you believe to be true for you is what will be true for you. So if you believe that it's really easy for you to make a lot of money and life is good and you have great relationships and all that, then your subconscious is going to go to work finding ways to make that true in your life. And it's going to give you ideas and suggestions and things to do to help make that true in your life, to make that inward reality match that outward reality. So you asked for two things. I don't know how many things that is, but that's the process. That's how it works. But it has to start, always starts inward first. We create twice, first with our minds, then in our outward reality. So it has to start with creating that new reality in your mind, whether it's money, love, health, whatever it is, it has to start here first.
That is so powerful.
Yeah. I'm going to kind of shift us, if that's okay. You talk a lot about like working with clients and stuff. Now I'm going to say it correctly this time, you guys. Let's talk about your She Sells method and the 10K club that you talk so much about. And we are just like, I personally don't know a whole lot about it. I know Caitlin does, and I am just so excited to learn more. Like, please tell me, please tell us.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, Caitlin, I mean, you're a member, so do you want to talk about what it's been like for you?
Well, I would love to, even just going back to the way that you were just talking about kind of reframing your mindset around everything. And we talked about this, I don't know if it was, a week ago, but our brains have like circuits in them or pathways that once you have that pathway formed, your brain is just naturally going to go on that pathway. It's like a road where, you're comfortable driving that route. You're always going to go that route, even if maybe there's a new road built out there that's faster, but like we're creatures of habit. It happens, and it happens in our brains too. So understanding that sometimes you already have these incorrect beliefs hardwired as pathways in your brain. Like when I make a mistake, I'm taking that pathway to the result that I'm an idiot. So every time I make a mistake, I'm an idiot. And it's just like this constant cycle, and thinking or believing when I make a mistake, I'm not an idiot. I'm actually really intelligent and I'm a learner and I grow from that. And I'm actually beautiful and worthy and capable of all good things. At first, it's going to feel so uncomfortable, even thinking that, not even saying it out loud, even just thinking that, because there's not really a good pathway yet. It's like a gravel road that, you haven't really developed. But it's over time, that's the importance of the practicing, where you keep putting it there. You keep walking down that road. You eventually develop that new pathway. And that's how all this stuff works. So that was a really long-winded way of saying Elyse goes so much deeper into what she's talking to us about, and on a much more individual level in the 10K club, which is the ability to work with her directly and with a group of women who are all in this same boat of, I'm not really happy about where my life is right now. I am ready to take it to the next level. I want the community and the guidance to help me get there. So I can't say enough about the positive experiences I've had so far. I'm only like 3.5 weeks in, and it's a 90-day program. I am just thrilled to see what else happens because I've already grown so much within the first 3 weeks.
Well, I adore having you in there, Caitlin. And I think, on the surface, so one of my superpowers is helping women break a 10K month really fast, get to six figures and kind of break through that. So that's kind of like the outward intention of the group, right? Is if you're a woman who wants to get to a 10K month in 90 days or less, we're going to do that together. And you've got my mentorship to do that. What's been interesting and fun about it, though, is just the diversity and the variety of women in there. So I have some women who don't have a business yet, but they're wanting to launch. And it's like, for them, a 5K month would be really exciting at the end of 90 days. And so that's what we're going for. I have other women in there who are past 1 million and they're looking to double that, but they're looking to do it in a way that's more in their feminine. So they're really curious about what would happen if I actually tapped into more of my creativity, if I felt more worthy of receiving this next level of money, if it could actually be easier for me to hit this next level. And they really want to explore that. So what I'm so passionate about is just helping women take on the identity of the woman who easily and effortlessly has all the things she desires in life, because we think it has to be a struggle. It doesn't. And I know, because I made it a struggle for so long in my own life, because I had limiting beliefs that it had to be hard. That's our own creation. It doesn't. It gets to be, if you require it to be, it gets to be easy for you. Making money, getting the love you desire, the health you desire, all of it gets to be easy for you. And that happens when you're in alignment. And so that's my real passion, is helping women just kind of uncover, like, what's the thing that's kind of gunking you up and kinking up your ability to receive what you want. Because when you get rid of that, it all flows in so easily. And it's like, you don't need yes, a sales script is good. And yes, I have those things and can help with those things, but it's more of, I kind of think of that as a Band-Aid. When you rewire and you're just the woman who naturally and effortlessly has 10K months or 100K months and is really in demand from her clients and gets speaking opportunities around the world, it just happens for you. You draw it in. So I prefer that way of creating. I think that's more fun and more lasting. And so that's really where my passion is with this group.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much, you both for talking about it.
Yeah.
Sounds awesome.
Pleasure. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about it. I'm so passionate about it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I know too, if you're thinking right now and like, I want to find out more, ElyseArcher.com is a great place to start. We will also be listing links to the website, to She Sells Radio, in our show notes of the podcast, or below, wherever you're finding this, whether it's our website or social media, we'll have it below. So go check it out. You can definitely find more information there. So shifting a little bit again, I know a huge strength of yours, Elyse, and something that you also work with people on is personal branding. And specifically, we live in this social media world, right? Where everything is online. So many people are doing videos now, doing podcasts. Hello. And I know a lot of people are just trying to figure out, how do I promote myself on LinkedIn? How do I stand out? Where's the starting point as far as just developing my personal brand for, if I have a business, or just my own personal, brand for growing professionally? So any tips that you would give, any advice there?
Yeah. So I'll give you tactical and I'll give you mindset. So I think the tactical is get really clear on the problem you solve. So that's actually something we teach our clients at Brand Builders Group, the other company that I helped start a few years ago, which is what your personal brand, to an extent, it's not even so much about you, it's more about the problem you solve for people. So we're really passionate about helping you get it down to one word. What is the one word problem that you're known for solving? Kind of like Brene Brown talks about the problem of shame, or Dave Ramsey talks about debt, like whatever that word is for you that feels like a problem you want to solve. Like for me, it's actually suppression, which sounds heavy, but it's suppression, because I did this for so long, and the women I work with now often have this show up somewhere in their life. It's like suppression of their voice, their instincts, their earning potential. And so when you build your brand around solving a problem for people, people buy solutions to problems. So in your content, you actually talk about that problem because it's more relatable and people can quickly identify, like, yeah, that's actually something I'm struggling with right now. And then they get curious and intrigued about what it is how you can help them. I think on a more mindset level, the biggest problem I see, especially a lot of women struggling with, is fear of visibility and fear of being seen. And I would love to just retire that conversation. I would love to. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, you have to freaking love yourself, which can be hard for some people to understand. Like, you have to fall so in love with yourself that you think what you have to offer is so amazing and you can't stop talking about that. And a lot of that comes from that rewiring and self-confidence. One quick thing you can do is, I used to struggle with a lot of negative self-talk, and I'd see myself in the mirror and I would say like, oh, my stomach looks fat, or I've got cellulite here, or whatever. Catch yourself when you're doing that, when you're speaking negatively to yourself. Stop it right in its tracks, and say something positive about yourself. So that process over time will help you feel more confident and just love yourself more. Because when you feel really worthy of receiving love and clients and attention, like, you want to be visible, you want to share, and you got to just get out of your own way. I had so much resistance for a long time about doing lives, and then it was doing reels because I thought I was going to look silly and people were going to laugh at me and all that. And that was all ego. It was all ego. And when you're in your ego, you're going to get this much results because you're trying to stay safe and play small. So the key is just try it. Do it once, realize you're not going to die. Realize that actually the thing you're afraid of is the very next thing you need to do to get to your next level. Everything you want is on the other side of what you're afraid of. That's how it works. Mm-hmm. Just try it. Just do one and see. And then you'll be like, oh, actually that got a lot of good feedback and that got me some customers, and I'm going to try it again. So those are some tips that I have found to be helpful in my own life and my clients too.
I completely agree with just being silly and just put it out there, because Caitlin and I have done that. And honestly, it's gotten some of the best feedback when we're just ourselves and we're goofy and authentic and awkward. I mean, for me, like, awkward happens a lot.
I love that.
Yeah, no, I think that that's amazing. And I think that's good advice, whether or not you are, I mean, even if you're not in sales, it's good to hear, like, just as, a human being, like, it's okay. Like, just be you. It's fine. Yes. Can we talk about LinkedIn and how you can make an impact there? Again, whether or not you're in sales, like, for me, like, I find I struggle with putting out content. Like, what do people really want to see on LinkedIn? Only because, like, from where I'm at career-wise, I'm not in sales, but I am in school, like, working on my bachelor's degree for business management and that kind of stuff. And, I want to stay where I'm at, like, company-wise, but, there's plenty of different doors and roads that I could go down. And, right now with where I'm at, like, not necessarily being in sales, or even Caitlin being kind of in sales, like, what kind of content should we put out on LinkedIn? Like, what are people looking for?
Yeah, that's a great question, Nicole. So there's actually a whole episode on my podcast about this. I don't remember the number, but it was within the past 10, and Alex B. Sheridan, he was the first guy I've interviewed on She Sells Radio, but he built a 6-figure business in 6 months doing like creative content on LinkedIn. So I had him on because I was like, this is amazing stuff and it's working well. So I've always found video works really well, especially on LinkedIn. It's still kind of in that stage where you can get a lot of good organic reach with your video content. It's obviously, like, if your listeners have been doing Facebook for a while, or even Instagram, the algorithm shifts to favor the paid content. So your videos that used to get a lot of engagement now get, way less if you're not paying for them to be seen. LinkedIn, you can still get pretty decent organic reach with video content specifically. I'm a big LinkedIn Live believer. You still have to apply for that. So if you, so it's just their version of like Facebook Live or Instagram Live. So if your audience is on LinkedIn and you haven't yet applied for LinkedIn Live, do that. And you can just Google, how do I apply for LinkedIn Live? It takes sometimes a couple weeks, sometimes a couple months to get approved, at least last I checked. Go ahead and apply for that though. And then you can do all sorts of cool things like interview your clients and host a podcast like through LinkedIn. There's so much good stuff. I think the other thing is just being intentional with your outreach. I'm a big believer in proactively reaching out to your ideal client. And this is something Alex talked about on our podcast, but you want to be adding somewhere between like 30 and 70 of your ideal clients a day on LinkedIn, it feels like a lot, right?
Yeah.
LinkedIn doesn't, the auto ad, like you see a lot of people sending you those automatic connection requests. I'm not a fan of that. So I actually have a list of, like, for me, it's women and male dominated industries that I reach out to and just send a connection request to with a custom message. And then a certain percentage of them write back and I send them a voice message, just getting to know them. And a certain percentage of them become clients. So it's like we overcomplicate like social media and prospecting, but it's a really simple, easy way to have a consistent stream of inbound leads coming in. So it's like outbound video content. And then also that just constantly growing your network and connecting, I think are two really powerful ways to win on LinkedIn today.
I think I completely agree with that. And I will tell you, when you and I first connected on Instagram and you sent me a video, or not a video, but a voice recording, like direct message, I was like, oh my God, why do I not do this? It felt like such a special touch. And I felt like I was really getting to connect with you on a different level that I haven't been able to do that with other people in the past. And I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Like, I don't know why it's like took me so long, but I'm like, yes, it's just an extra little tiny thing. And it took you nothing to do it. Instead of typing it, you just hit a record, and just having somebody's voice talk to me, or that I could hear instead of just reading a text message, was astounding. Like that to me was a game changer. And I was like, okay, all right. Like, that's something that I could do on my own.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's maybe just to kind of like come full circle on this. That's very feminine, right? It's relational. It's building those relationships. And so when I send those, I'm not attached to who becomes my client or not. It's like a networking event, right? When you go in and you just genuinely want to meet people and connect with them, and look, some of them are going to become your customers. Some of them are going to have referrals. Some of them are going to become friends. Some of them maybe you need to buy from. It's just that, like, let's just all release the attachment to who becomes our customer and how it happens and all that, and just show up and have fun and connect with people and build relationships. And it all works out so much easier that way. It really does. So I appreciate you sharing that, Nicole, because it's fun for me to do that. And I'm glad you received it that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was thinking the exact same thing. I know Elyse has sent me a voice message through LinkedIn, which, I knew it was possible through Instagram, didn't know LinkedIn had a feature. And so that's huge. Again, just reiterating, find unique ways to connect with people, whether it's, you're in business and you're wanting to connect with potential clients, or like Nicole said, you're maybe a student and you're looking for opportunities out there in the job market or internships, whatever. Just find ways to be yourself, be unique, and that will really speak volumes, in the midst of this world where we're just constantly bombarded with information from every angle. So, well, I know we are getting to the end here of our podcast. So much great information, Elyse. I mean, I am so excited to listen to this and rewatch this again, just to soak it up even more. But anything else you want to leave our listeners with, as far as, anything we didn't touch on, or just anything you would like to say?
Yeah, I would say two things. Number one, trust yourself. Trust yourself, trust those instincts, whether it's in business, in your life, in your next career move. It's there for a reason. And number two is you're worthy of everything you desire. You are absolutely 100% worthy of everything you desire. So feel that, practice feeling that, start to rehearse that in your mind and realize it's true for you. And the most amazing things will unfold in your life. And thank you again for the opportunity to be here.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. This was amazing.
Yes, absolutely. And again, we will put links to everything in the show notes below, so check that out. If you're interested in the 10K Club, again, please reach out to me too. I'm a part of that, so I'd love to tell you more about my personal experience. And other than that, thank you again, Elyse, and we'll look forward to meeting you all again next time in our new podcast. Bye.
Bye.